Certified incident briefings. Real video evidence. Strict accountability. You are viewing Bodycam incident reports.
Turn around, now. You're under arrest for soliciting and refusing a lawful order.
Officer, I'm donating property. I haven't committed a crime. This stop is unlawful.
Don't argue with me. Hands behind your back.
You're detaining me without probable cause, and your camera's recording
Stop
every
resisting.
second. I am not resisting.
You are violating my...
It was 11:15 on a Tuesday morning in a sun-drenched parking lot in Charleston, South Carolina. To the casual observer, the scene looked like a standard police interaction gone wrong. A uniformed officer, young jaw set, tight hand, hovering near his taser. A civilian, an older black man standing tall next to a Ford F-150, refusing to be cowed. But Officer Kyle Braden, 28 years old and just 11 months out of his probationary period, had absolutely no idea who he was talking to. He saw a man in worn-out cargo pants and a faded olive drab t-shirt. He saw a truck filled with bags. He saw a vagrant loitering near the donation bins of the Veterans Support Center. What he didn't see was the retired Marine Corps colonel. He didn't see the Purple Heart recipient. He didn't see Marcus Thorne, the man appointed by the president to serve as the senior federal advocate for veteran housing. Marcus wasn't panicking. He wasn't shouting. He was analyzing Officer Braden's stance, his poor trigger discipline, and his rapidly flushing face with the cold, detached calculation of a man who had led battalions into combat zones. "Turn around," Braden barked, stepping into Marcus's personal space. "You're under arrest for aggressive panhandling and failure to obey a lawful order." "Aggressive panhandling," Marcus repeated, his voice dropping an octave, calm but dangerous. "I'm donating $3,000 worth of custom suits to this center. The only thing I'm soliciting is a receipt for my taxes." "Yeah, sure. And I'm the police commissioner. Turn around." Braden grabbed Marcus's arm. "Be very careful with that left shoulder, officer." Marcus said, his eyes locking onto Braden's aviators. "There is shrapnel in there from Fallujah that makes it stiff. If you yank it, I will sue you, your sergeant, and this entire city into bankruptcy." "Stop resisting," Braden yelled for the benefit of the dash cam, wrenching the arm behind Marcus's back. Marcus winced a sharp intake of breath through his nose, but he didn't fight back. He allowed the steel cuffs to click shut around his wrists. "You have just violated my Fourth Amendment rights," Marcus stated clearly, speaking toward the growing crowd of onlookers. "You have detained me without reasonable suspicion, you have arrested me without probable cause, and you are currently using excessive force on a disabled veteran." "Tell it to the judge," Braden sneered, tightening the cuffs one notch too tight. "Oh, I will," Marcus replied, "and I suspect he'll be very interested to hear why you arrested a federal official for the crime of giving charity." Before we unravel this infuriating display of incompetence and authority abuse, I need you to do something for me. Stop what you're doing and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, your state, your city. And if you believe that our veterans deserve respect, not harassment, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to make your blood boil, and you need to see how it ends. Marcus stood by the donation bin, handcuffed like a common criminal. The sun beat down on the asphalt. He looked at the young officer who was now rummaging through the bed of Marcus's truck, treating the carefully folded Italian wool suits like garbage. Braden thought he had caught a grifter scamming the donation center. He thought he was cleaning up the streets. In reality, he had just lit a fuse that was going to blow up the entire department. To understand how a simple act of charity turned into a constitutional crisis, we have to go back just 20 minutes. Marcus Thorne had woken up that morning with a specific mission. At 62 years old, Marcus had spent the last 3 decades serving his country first in the Corps, then in the Pentagon, and now as a civilian watchdog, ensuring that federal grants for homeless veterans were actually reaching the people who needed them. He was a man of routine and precision. That morning he had cleared out his closet. These weren't just old clothes. These were bespoke suits from his days consulting in D.C. silk ties and dress shirts that cost more than Officer Braden's weekly paycheck. Marcus knew the Suits for Soldiers program at the local center helped veterans dress for job interviews. He wanted to give back to the brothers and sisters who hadn't been as fortunate as him in their transition to civilian life. He had dressed down for the task old yard work clothes. He drove his trusty F-150, a vehicle he kept immaculate. He pulled into the donation center lot, which was publicly accessible, and backed into a spot near the large metal bins. The center was closed for lunch, so Marcus began unloading the bags himself, stacking them neatly to ensure the clothes wouldn't wrinkle. He was humming a tune, enjoying the warm South Carolina air. He felt good. It was a good day to do good. Officer Kyle Braden was on patrol in Sector 4. Braden was the kind of cop who measured his worth by his arrest stats. He was 28, ambitious, and deeply insecure. He had been told by his field training officer months ago that he needed to be more proactive. To Braden, proactive didn't mean community engagement. It meant finding bad guys where there weren't any. He rolled his cruiser into the lot looking for expired tags or loiterers. What he saw was a black male roughly 6'2", wearing worn-out clothes, digging into the back of a truck near the donation bins. In Braden's mind, the narrative was instant and absolute theft. Or scam. He didn't run the plate on the F-150. If he had, he would have seen the vehicle was registered to Marcus Thorne, with a special designation for a disabled veteran plate, though the angle of the truck hid the tag from his immediate view. He didn't observe for 5 minutes to see what the man was actually doing. He just saw a profile that fit his bias. Braden put the cruiser in park and stepped out. He adjusted his belt, pulling his pants up, and walked over with a swagger that he thought commanded respect, but actually signaled inexperience. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Braden called out from 30 feet away. Marcus paused, holding a hanger with a gray Armani suit covered in plastic. He turned slowly, lowering his sunglasses. "Good morning, officer. Just dropping off some donations." "Donations, huh?" Braden closed the distance, his hand resting on his holster, not drawing but threatening. "Looks more like you're taking stuff out of there." "I am unloading my personal vehicle," Marcus said, his voice calm, the command voice dormant but present. "The center is closed, so I'm stacking them here for the intake coordinator." "That's a likely story," Braden scoffed. "We've had reports of people stealing from these bins, and we've had reports of people hanging around here begging for change from people dropping stuff off." Marcus frowned. "I'm sure you have. But as you can see, I am alone here. I'm not stealing, and I'm certainly not begging." "Let me see some ID," Braden demanded. This was the pivot point. The moment where a good officer would have looked at the quality of the suits, looked at the calm demeanor of the man, and realized his mistake. But Braden wasn't looking for facts. He was looking for compliance. "Officer," Marcus said, placing the suit gently in the bin, "I am under no obligation to provide identification unless you can articulate a reasonable suspicion that I have committed, am committing, or am about to commit a crime. This is a consensual encounter, is it not?" Braden's eyes narrowed. He hated it when they knew the law. To him, knowing the law was a sign of guilt. "You're loitering on private property. That's a crime. ID now." "It is not private property. This is a municipal lot leased to a non-profit receiving federal funds," Marcus corrected him. "I am conducting lawful business. I am not loitering." "You getting smart with me?" Braden stepped closer. "I'm investigating a suspicious person. That's you. So you can either hand over your license or I can put you in the back of the car for obstruction." The air in the parking lot seemed to grow heavier, charged with the static of an unavoidable collision. Marcus Thorne took a slow breath. He had faced down insurgents, navigated the treacherous politics of Washington, D.C., and raised 3 children. He was not about to be intimidated by a man who looked like he hadn't started shaving until last Tuesday. "Officer, I am not getting smart." Marcus set his posture, straightening to his full height. He towered over Braden by 2 inches, but his presence made it feel like a foot. "I am asserting my constitutional rights. There is a difference. You have no probable cause. You have no reasonable suspicion. You are fishing. I don't need to fish, Braden retorted, his voice rising, cracking slightly. I see a guy in raggedy clothes with a truck full of expensive suits that clearly don't belong to him. That's possession of stolen property until proven otherwise. Raggedy. Marcus looked down at his gardening clothes and chuckled dryly. These are work clothes, son, and the suits are mine. If you had run the plate on my truck, you'd know who I am. I told you not to call me son, Braden yelled. He was losing control of the interaction, and he knew it. A small crowd had started to form on the sidewalk nearby. A woman in a floral dress, probably in her late 50s, had stopped pushing her stroller and was watching. A man in a delivery uniform paused his route. Sir, step away from the vehicle, Braden ordered. Put your hands where I can see them. My hands are right here, Marcus said, holding them out, palms open. I'm going to reach into my pocket to retrieve my phone to record this encounter. Don't you reach for anything. Braden's hand jerked his taser halfway out of the holster. Keep your hands up. You are escalating this unnecessarily, Marcus said, his voice steel. You are making a mistake that you cannot undo. I am asking you as a senior federal official to call your supervisor. Federal official? Braden laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Yeah, and I'm the King of England. You're a panhandler with a stolen wardrobe. I'm done asking. Braden grabbed his radio. Dispatch show me 10 to 15 with one male subject at the donation center. Non-compliant. Possible 488 petty theft and soliciting. Soliciting? Marcus asked, incredulous. Who am I soliciting? There is no one here but you and me. You're soliciting trouble, Braden mumbled, dropping the radio. Last chance. ID or cuffs. I am not providing ID for an unlawful stop, Marcus said firmly. I am asking you to articulate the crime. Looking suspicious is not a crime. Delaware versus Prowse. Terry versus Ohio. You need specific facts, officer. What are they? Braden didn't have facts. He had an ego, and it was currently being bruised in front of an audience. He pointed a finger at Marcus's chest. You're blocking a public easement, you're disturbing the peace, and you're refusing a lawful order. I am on a parking spot. I am speaking at a conversational volume. And the order is unlawful. Marcus parried every point effortlessly. That's it, Braden snapped. He moved in. Marcus saw it coming. He knew he could physically overpower the young man. Marine Corps hand-to-hand combat training didn't just disappear with age, but he also knew that any physical resistance, even defensive, would be a death sentence. The headline would read, Violent Vagrant Attacks Officer. He had to win this mentally, legally, and strategically. He had to let the system break itself against his innocence. I am submitting under duress, Marcus announced loudly as Braden grabbed his wrist. I am not resisting arrest. I am documenting your misconduct. Shut up, Braden hissed. I will not, Marcus replied. Every word you say is being recorded by that camera over there on the bank building and by the lady in the floral dress who just started filming on her phone. Braden glanced over his shoulder. The woman in the floral dress was indeed holding her phone up horizontal mode, steady hands. Back up, Braden yelled at her. I'm on a public sidewalk, officer, the woman shouted back. She sounded like a retired schoolteacher, authoritative and unafraid. I have a right to be here, and I see a man who isn't doing anything wrong. Thank you, ma'am, Marcus called out. Please keep recording. Turn around. Braden spun Marcus forcefully against the truck. The metal of the truck bed dug into Marcus's hip. Watch the shoulder, Marcus warned again, his voice tight with pain, but controlled. I have a reconstructed rotator cuff. Braden ignored him. He was operating on adrenaline and anger now. He pulled Marcus's arms back, cranking the left one high. The pain was blinding, white-hot needles shooting down Marcus's spine. He gritted his teeth, refusing to give Braden the satisfaction of a scream. The handcuffs ratcheted shut. Click, click, click. The sound was final. "You are under arrest." Braden panted, slightly out of breath from the exertion of his own anger. "For what charge?" Marcus asked, leaning his forehead against the hot metal of his truck to stabilize himself against the pain in his shoulder. "Interfering with a police investigation, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest without violence, and soliciting without a permit." Braden listed them off, throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. Braden patted Marcus down roughly. He pulled Marcus's wallet from his back pocket. It was a thick leather wallet. Braden didn't open it. He just shoved it into his own cargo pocket. He found the keys to the F-150 and shoved those in his pocket too. "You're impounding my vehicle?" Marcus asked. "On what grounds it is legally parked?" "Incident to arrest," Braden said dismissively. "Can't leave it here unsecured with all this merchandise in the back." "That merchandise is my property," Marcus said. "Officer, I want you to listen to me very closely. In that wallet you will find my identification. You will find my driver's license. You will also find a Department of Defense identification card and a federal credentials packet. I strongly suggest you look at them before you put me in that car." "I'll look at them at the station," Braden said. He grabbed Marcus by the bicep and marched him toward the cruiser. Marcus walked with a limp. He usually tried to hide shrapnel in the knee, another souvenir from his service. The forced march made it more pronounced. "He's limping," the woman recording shouted. "Why are you dragging him? He's not fighting you." "Back up or you're next," Braden threatened the witness. "Intimidation of a witness," Marcus noted aloud. "Title 18 U.S. Code, another federal violation." "Get in." Braden shoved Marcus's head down and pushed him into the back of the cruiser. The plastic seat was hard, the space cramped. For a man of Marcus's size, with a bad knee and a frozen shoulder, it was torture. He had to twist his body to fit the handcuffs biting into his wrists. Braden slammed the door. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Inside the car, the air conditioning was blasting, smelling of stale coffee and sanitizer. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. He focused on his breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Tactical breathing. He needed his heart rate down. He needed his mind sharp. Braden got into the front seat. He didn't look back at Marcus. He was typing furiously on his laptop, probably trying to frame the narrative in the call log before they even arrived. "Officer Braden," Marcus spoke through the plexiglass divider. "You have my wallet in your pocket. I'm requesting that you check my medical alert card. I have a heart condition related to my service. The stress of this unlawful arrest is a medical risk." "You seemed fine when you were arguing with me," Braden said, putting the car in gear. "We'll be at the station in 10 minutes. The nurse can check you out." "You are willfully ignoring a medical notification," Marcus said. "Noted." Braden turned on his lights, but not his siren, and pulled out of the lot. As they drove past the woman filming, Marcus nodded to her. She nodded back, looking terrified but determined. The ride to the precinct was tense. Braden turned up the radio, blasting rock music to drown out any further attempts by Marcus to speak. It was petty, it was childish, and it was the behavior of a man who deep down in the pit of his stomach was starting to feel the cold worm of doubt wiggling around. What if he really is a Fed, Braden thought. No, look at the truck. Look at the clothes. Just a crazy old guy. Marcus sat in the back watching the city pass by. He had fought for this country. He had bled for it. He had spent his entire adult life trying to make it better. And here he was in the back of a squad car, treated like an enemy combatant in his own hometown because a 28-year-old with a badge couldn't see past his own bias. The sadness washed over him, followed by a cold, hard resolve. He wasn't doing this for himself anymore. He was doing it for every veteran who didn't have a high-ranking title. He was doing it for the kids in his neighborhood. He was going to teach the Charleston Police Department a lesson they would never forget. The cruiser rolled into the secured sally port of the North District Precinct. The heavy metal doors clanged shut behind them, sealing out the sunlight. Braden killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy. "Let's go." Braden opened the back door. He hauled Marcus out. Marcus groaned involuntarily as his stiff knee hit the concrete floor. Braden marched him through the booking doors. The air inside smelled of floor wax and old sweat. The intake desk was manned by Sergeant Mike Kowalski. Kowalski was 55, a dinosaur in the department with gray hair cut high and tight and eyes that had seen everything twice. He was drinking coffee from a styrofoam cup and reading a report. He looked up as Braden wrestled Marcus toward the bench. Kowalski's eyes went from Braden to Marcus. He paused. He squinted. "What you got, Braden?" Kowalski asked, his voice gravelly. "Soliciting disorderly resisting," Braden announced proudly. "Caught him at the vet center. Guy was aggressive. Claimed he was some kind of federal agent." Kowalski stood up slowly. He walked around the desk. He looked at Marcus. He looked at the way Marcus stood spine straight, despite the handcuffs, chin up, eyes clear and judging. Kowalski knew that stance. He had seen it in the mirror every day for 30 years. He had seen it in his father. "Uncuff him from this bench," Kowalski said quietly. "Sarge, he's a flight risk. He was belligerent." "I said..." Kowalski's voice was like a whip crack. "Don't chain him to the bench. Put him in the chair." Braden rolled his eyes, but complied, shoving Marcus into a plastic chair. "I got his ID right here. Haven't run it yet. System in the car was lagging." Braden tossed Marcus's leather wallet onto the counter. It landed with a heavy thud. Kowalski picked it up. He opened it. The first thing he saw was the driver's license. Marcus Aurelius Thorne. Kowalski flipped the flap. There, behind clear plastic, was a badge. Not a tin police badge. A heavy gold and blue enamel crest. United States Department of Veterans Affairs. Office of the Secretary. Below it, a card with a holographic seal, Senior Federal Advocate. Clearance level, Top Secret /SCI. Kowalski felt the blood drain from his face. He flipped another flap. A laminated card edged in purple. Purple Heart recipient. Operation Phantom Fury. USMC. Kowalski looked up at Marcus. He looked at the vagrant clothes. Then he looked closer at the t-shirt. It was faded, yes, but the logo on the chest was the emblem of the 1st Marine Division. "Oh, sweet Jesus," Kowalski whispered. "What?" Braden asked, filling out paperwork. "He have a warrant." Kowalski walked around the desk, ignoring Braden. He walked right up to Marcus. He looked at the handcuffs. Then he looked Braden dead in the eye. "You arrested Colonel Thorne?" Kowalski asked, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and terror. "Colonel who?" Braden asked. This man, Kowalski, held up the federal credentials, his hand shaking, "is Colonel Marcus Thorne. He runs the Federal Housing Oversight Committee, the one that approves the grants for our community outreach program, the one the chief has been begging for all year." Braden stopped writing. The pen hovered over the paper. But he was wearing rags. He was at the donation bin. "I was donating $3,000 of suits." Marcus spoke for the first time since entering the station. His voice was calm, echoing in the quiet room. "And I told Officer Braden 5 times who I was. I told him to check my wallet. I told
Turn
him
around
about my
now.
shoulder.
You're under arrest for
He chose to
soliciting and
ignore
refusing a
all of it.
lawful order.
Officer, I'm donating
Kowalski
property. I haven't
turned
committed a
on
crime. This stop is unlawful.
You didn't check his ID. He refused to show it initially. He was resisting." "I asserted my rights," Marcus corrected. "There is a difference, Sergeant, and your officer here doesn't seem to know it." Kowalski moved quickly behind Marcus. "Colonel, I am so sorry. I'm taking these off right now." He fumbled for his key. "Leave them on," Marcus said. Kowalski froze. "Sir." "I said leave them on." I want the watch commander down here. I want Captain Henderson. And I want him to see exactly how his officers treat a disabled veteran who asserts his Fourth Amendment rights." "Sir, please, we can resolve this," Kowalski pleaded. "We will resolve this," Marcus said coldly. "But first, get Henderson. Now." Captain Frank Henderson was in his office on the second floor eating a sandwich and looking forward to his retirement in 6 months. When the call came from the booking desk, he didn't rush. But when Kowalski said the words, "Federal Advocate" and "Unlawful Arrest," Henderson dropped his sandwich. He ran down the stairs, bursting into the booking area. The scene that greeted him was a nightmare. Marcus Thorne sat in the plastic chair, hands cuffed behind his back, looking like a statue of judgment. Braden was standing in the corner, looking pale and small. Kowalski was standing at attention, looking sick. Henderson knew Marcus Thorne. He had met him at a gala 2 years ago. He knew the man's reputation. Thorne was a bulldog for civil rights and had a direct line to the DOJ. "Colonel Thorne," Henderson gasped, approaching him. "Good God, Mike, get those cuffs off him." "He refused, Captain," Kowalski said. "He wanted you to see." Henderson turned to Braden. "What in the hell did you do?" I thought he was a panhandler, Cap. He was by the bins. He wouldn't show ID." Braden's voice was a whisper. "Did he commit a crime?" Henderson barked. "Did you see him steal? Did you see him aggressive?" "He was uncooperative." "Being black and knowing your rights isn't uncooperative." Henderson yelled, his face turning beet red. "You detained a federal official without probable cause. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've just cost this city its entire veteran housing grant. You've just invited a federal audit." Henderson turned back to Marcus. "Colonel, please, allow me to remove these. This is a terrible mistake. Officer Braden he's new. He's zealous. We can fix this." Marcus looked at Henderson. "Captain, I want you to listen to me. My shoulder is throbbing. My wrists are bleeding. I have been humiliated in front of my community. You cannot fix this with an apology." "We'll drop all charges," Henderson said quickly. "There are no charges. It never happened. I'll drive you back to your truck personally. I'll have the car detailed." "It happened," Marcus said. "And there are witnesses and video. We can handle this internally." Henderson pressed sweat beading on his forehead. "Disciplinary action, suspension, whatever you want." "I want the cuffs off now," Marcus said. Henderson nodded to Kowalski, who rushed forward and unlocked the cuffs. Marcus brought his arms forward, slowly grimacing in pain. His wrists were marked with deep red furrows. He rubbed his left shoulder, his face tightening. "Do you need a medic?" Henderson asked. "I will see my own doctor," Marcus said, standing up. He towered over Henderson. "And I will be documenting the injuries." "Colonel, please." Henderson lowered his voice. "Don't destroy this kid's life. He made a bad call." Marcus looked at Braden. The young officer was staring at the floor, trembling. "He didn't make a bad call, Captain," Marcus said softly. "He made a choice. He saw a black man in work clothes and chose to see a criminal. He saw a citizen asserting rights and chose to see a threat. That is not a training error. That is a character flaw, and a man with that flaw has no business carrying a badge and a gun. He's young. I was leading men into combat when I was 22. Marcus cut him off. I was responsible for lives. If I made a bad call based on prejudice, people died. Do not make excuses for him." The booking room was silent. The buzzing of the fluorescent lights seemed deafening. "Here is what is going to happen," Marcus said, his voice echoing with the authority of a man who had commanded thousands. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. "1." Marcus held up a finger. "I want a digital copy of the body camera footage, the dash cam footage, and the booking surveillance unredacted provided to my attorney by 5:00 p.m. today. If it is lost or corrupted, I will call the Attorney General personally. Henderson nodded. You'll have it. 2, Marcus continued. I want a written statement from Officer Braden articulating exactly what probable cause he had to detain me. I want him to put it on paper. I want him to commit to his lie or admit his bias. Braden flinched in the corner. 3, Marcus stepped closer to Henderson. I want the contact information for the city attorney, because I am going to file a civil rights lawsuit. Not for the money. I will donate every dime to the shelter you were trying to protect me from, but I want a consent decree. I want independent oversight of your stop and frisk statistics. Colonel, that will cripple the department, Henderson warned. No, Captain. Officers like him cripple the department. Marcus pointed at Braden without looking at him. Transparency will save it. Marcus reached out and took his wallet from the counter. He checked the contents. Everything was there. You have my keys, Marcus asked. Braden stepped forward, his hand shaking as he held out the keys to the F-150. Sir, Marcus snatched the keys. He didn't look at the boy. He looked at Henderson. Am I free to go, or am I being detained? You are free to go, sir. Henderson said, his shoulders slumping. Colonel, I really am sorry. I know you are, Frank, Marcus said, using the captain's first name for the first time. But sorry doesn't fix a torn rotator cuff, and sorry doesn't give me back my dignity. Marcus turned and walked toward the exit. He walked with a limp, his shoulder aching, his wrists burning, but he held his head high. He pushed through the doors and walked out into the afternoon sun. He took a deep breath of fresh air. He pulled his phone out and dialed a number. Hello, David. Yes, it's Marcus. Clear your schedule. We have a Title 42, Section 1983 case. Yes, today. The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. By Wednesday morning, the video from the woman in the floral dress, Martha Higgins, a retired librarian, was everywhere. It had 2 million views on Twitter and 5 million on Facebook. The image of the young white officer twisting the arms of the elderly black veteran was splashed across every news channel from Atlanta to D.C. The headline was devastating. Hero Colonel arrested for donating suits. Officer Braden's body camera footage released within 24 hours due to Marcus's pressure was even worse. It showed the arrogance, the dismissal of rights, and the clear lack of probable cause. It showed Marcus being calm, respectful, and articulate while Braden was aggressive and rude. The city of Charleston didn't even try to fight it. The city attorney took one look at the case file and advised a settlement immediately. They knew that putting Marcus Thorne on a witness stand in front of a jury would result in a verdict that would bankrupt the county. The settlement was reached in 3 weeks. $500,000. Marcus Thorne stood on the steps of the Veterans Support Center a month later. He was wearing one of his custom suits, his arm in a sling. He held the check in his good hand. Reporters were gathered around. I did not seek this money for myself, Marcus told the cameras. I have a pension. I have a home. But there are men and women who wore the uniform who are sleeping under bridges tonight. Men and women who are harassed because they look poor or lost or broken. He handed the check to the director of the center. This money will build a new wing for transitional housing. It will be named the Liberty Wing, because liberty is what we fought for and liberty is what we must protect here at home. See? As for Officer Kyle Braden, his career was over before it began. He was terminated for cause conduct, unbecoming violation of civil rights, and filing a false report. The police union refused to back him after the video surfaced. He became a pariah, the face of bad policing. Captain Henderson was forced into early retirement. The department was placed under a federal consent decree mandating retraining on racial bias and constitutional policing, a program designed and overseen by Marcus Thorne's office. But the real ending of this story isn't about the money or the firings. It was a quiet Tuesday evening 6 months later. Marcus was at the center volunteering. He saw a young man walk in. The kid looked rough, dirty clothes, nervous eyes. He was a vet fresh back from deployment, clearly struggling. Marcus walked over. He didn't judge the clothes. He didn't assume the worst. "Welcome home, Marine," Marcus said softly. "You look like you could use a fresh start." The young man looked at Marcus, then at the rack of suits. "I can't afford these, sir." "They're not for sale, son." Marcus smiled, the pain in his shoulder a dull reminder of why he was here. "They're a gift, from one soldier to another." The young man wept, and Marcus stood there, a guardian in a suit, proving that true authority isn't about power or badges. It's about service. It's about seeing the human being in front of you. What do you think? Was a $500,000 settlement enough for the humiliation Colonel Thorne endured, or should the price for violating the Constitution be higher? Let me know in the comments below. And please share this story, because for every Marcus Thorne who can fight back, there are 1,000 others who can't. We need to be their voice. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay informed, and always know your rights.
Investigation officially closed. For additional unedited footage, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for trusting Bodycam Incident Reports.